starts in 22 in this particular
Okay.
translation. So
Thus declares the Lord, the dead bodies of men shall fall like during upon an open field, like sheaves after the reaper, and none shall gather them. Then it continues, thus says the Lord, let not the wise man boast in his wisdom, let not the mighty man boast in his might. Let not the rich man boast in his riches, but let him who boasts boast in this, that he understands and knows me, that I am the Lord who practices steadfast love, justice, and righteousness in the earth. For in these things I delight, declares the Lord.
I
So,
like that. That's beautiful.
I want to highlight when he says, understands and knows me. So
I
in
like
light
that.
of what we have just learned, what could you say about this?
this is Stone's Tanakh. It reads a little bit different.
Sure.
So let me just,
Sure,
because I think it'll elaborate, embellish a little bit what you're saying. Just for what it's worth, this one starts in 22, whereas yours started in 23.
Okay.
So just so some people know, for whatever reason, sometimes the numbering of the verses are different in the different texts.
Hebrew published
Yeah,
Bibles,
yeah, it is
yeah.
different.
This is American
The Psalms
Standard
are almost
or
always
something.
different.
Yes.
So this says, thus, I'll just read what they have here in English. Thus says Hashem, and that's actually the Yod He Vav He word, whenever they put that here. Let not the wise man glorify himself with his wisdom. Let not the strong man glorify himself with his strength. Let not the rich man glorify himself with his wealth. For only with this may one glorify himself, contemplating and knowing me. For I am Hashem, who does kindness, and that's the word chesed, like your group bet chesed. That's the word chesed. For I am Yahuwah, who does chesed, mishpat, zadikah in the land. For in these is my desire. Now that word desire is chafatz ti. Chafatz is desire. So here you have a het, pei, zadi, and then there's a suffix tav, yod. So just for what it's worth, a little bit of Hebrew spelling, when the letter tav is either at the beginning or the end, and sometimes it drops in the middle of a word, it doesn't necessarily change the word. It's a tense of future or past, or this might be, will be. It offsets timing, but it doesn't change the verb root. So Hebrew, what they call the Semitic language group, which is a lot of the European languages, has a 3-letter verb root. I look at 2-letter increments, but also 3-letter, and if you have a 4-letter, what I've found is that some words can be read as, if you have a 4-letter word, one letter could be the suffix, and then these 3 are the verb root, or you could say, but what if that was if one was a suffix, what if it was a prefix, then you have a different 3 letters as the verb root. And sometimes you can't tell,
Right.
which is why one of the reasons why you get different translations, because you can shuffle it back and forth.
Okay.
So I try to look at both, or all the possibilities of what's
Right.
wrapped up in a word. So I try to reverse engineer the spelling. So what I'm saying is that if you wanted to look at this word here, in this is what I desire. And then when it says the word of Hashem, it's actually this phrase spelled Nun Aleph Mem hyphened to Yod He Vav He. So this Nun Aleph Mem would be pronounced Nam, like Vietnam, that same type of thing. It's translated the word. Nun is this letter like the fish that jumps out of the water. It's this action, like turning on the light switch, or it's this lightning bolt. It's boom. Incoming energy. Aleph Mem is a word that by itself it means if, but it also means on the condition of, It's the word that also is translated as mother or metropolis or nation.
Yeah,
So if you put that all together,
yeah.
you've got Aleph, which is this strong initiation, and then you've got Mem, which is water, but within the context of what the letters mean, it's also a womb. So you could say, well, Aleph is also the Aleph Bet is father, Aleph Mem is mother, so Am is also mother, but the mother's womb, what does that do? Well, it receives incoming resources, and then she affects it, works it, and puts out a product. That's the same thing as a factory, same thing as a city, and if, or according to the quality, the conditions, the effect that's worked or exercised onto that resource brought in, you could bring in a trunk of a tree into a wood shop, and the guy sits there and works it and cuts it and polishes it and shapes it, and next thing you know you have a... It's that same picture. So when he says Nam Yahweh here, to me, there's even more to it than this, than what I just described by breaking that down. If you take a note, if you're looking at the Hebrew, how often he says this phrase, Nun Aleph Mem Yod He Vav He. The sense that I got, it was almost like if you have a king or an emperor or a president who signs this thing with this signet of like a wax seal, as it were. Let me see, I have an example of what I'm trying to say here. Let me find it. Here, I made up this sticker of,
Oh yeah.
so that's like, it says Nun Aleph Mem Yod He Vav He, and then the alphabetic letters are around it.
Show it to the camera.
So in other words, here I can pass it around if you want to.
Yeah, sure.
Here. The point is, if he has this official declaration on a signet ring, and like, remember when Daniel, the king of Babylon, made a decree and like to throw Shadrach, Meshach, and Abednego in the fiery furnace, and it can't be rescinded.
Right.
And even Ahasuerus with Queen Esther, he made a decree, it can't be well. If this is the decree, it can't be rescinded. So for it to say Nun Aleph Mem is basically where he is saying, when you see the word Vayomer, Aleph Mem Resh, that's translated as speak or say or tell. But so is the word Dabar, to speak, to say. But Amer, in the dictionary, it says it's like fine, high utterances, like the Declaration of Independence or the Gettysburg Address. That would be an Amer, whereas Dabar is more of a word, a matter of thing. I mean, there's more to it than that. But Nun Aleph Mem is kind of like, that's like sealed, cannot be broken. Absolutely, this is locked into the fabric of the universe.
Isn't it translated prophecy in some places?
Yeah, it is.
So, but it's more than just, when I say just a prophecy, if it's a real prophecy, you can't just minimalize it by saying just, but like that, when he gives it as a prophecy.
It's kind of like a laden freight. It's on its way to accomplishment.
So
what he's speaking is projected and with an accomplishment to received at the other end.
So here's the interesting thing. Taking what you're saying, if you look at the letter Nun and say, well, here's this energized, like flipping a light switch or hitting a lightning bolt and, inputting energy to, and if it's this laden cargo that's on its way to arriving, if Aleph Mem means if on the condition, does that mean it's going to happen, or that means it's going to happen only on a certain condition? I mean, what is this really saying? But what it says is, assuming the condition can be met, it absolutely is going to happen. So then what I'm suggesting is that one of the benefits of reading Hebrew is that when you spot something like this, Nun Aleph Mem Yod He Vav He, take particular note. it's kind of like somebody saying, hey, I've got some inside information on playing the stock market. I know for a fact that this stock is going to jump in value by 1,000%. Buy some today, even if you have to go beg the money. It's kind of like the lady with the oil with Elijah, right? And get every container you can find and start pouring oil. Whenever you see Nun Aleph Mem, Yod He Vav He, play into those conditions, because that can't fail to happen. So this is what he's saying. For only with this may one glorify himself. That word contemplating is the word Hey Shin Kaf Lamed. Well, the Hey is kind of like the, and the word Shakal. There's a basketball player by the name of Shaquille O'Neal.
Yeah.
That's the same word, only I think he's taken on an Arabic sort of name, but it's the exact same word.
Is it sakal?
It depends where you put the point. So
Because-
the vowel
well,
pointer
yeah.
is on the left, so it would be S. Yeah, right. Sakal.
Yeah, because that's a really awesome word.
Yeah, but the thing is, whether it's an S or an SH. See, if you know Hebrew, if
Right.
the sheen has the dot on the right, it's pronounced as an SH.
So
On
in
the
here-
left, it would be
in
an S,
case
and this
it's
one's
a
on the left.
Shakal. Okay.
Well, no, this is on the left, so it would be S. Sakal.
Oh, so it's
But see,
sakal.
I don't
Okay.
use vowel points, so I'm just looking at the
Right,
letters. So
right,
to me,
yeah.
I'm looking at the word
Or it's
Shakil, Shakal.
sakale, or that's a.
In
Proverbs
that,
uses it a lot.
so you said that it was a really significant word.
Yeah, sakal. Proverbs uses it a lot. It's,
What does it mean? I'll tell you what the dictionary says. But go ahead.
Sometimes it's translated wisdom, insight. I mean, it's really deep. I can't really. In English, it's hard to explain it because it's like God's inner workings of His mind, kind of thing.
So suckle is mind or thought.
Yeah,
So is
And
that,
it- and the-
are we talking about the same spelling here?
I think so. I think it's the Sephardi's use sakal instead of chokmah, and the Ashkenazis, chokmah bina da'at. In the Sephard Siddur, it'll say sakal or sakale as opposed to chokmah.
Okay, so the dictionary here says to be prudent, to act wisely, to look at, observe, consider, act intelligently. He prospered, had success, caused to consider, instructed, taught, to place crosswise. Now you have to sit there and say,
I haven't heard
place
of that one.
crosswise. If you're going to build something, it's a lot stronger if you place things crosswise, framing of a building. So then you have to think, place crosswise is situation specific that may not be part of your world, but then you have to kind of think back. But prudence, insight, understanding, intelligence, cunning, craft. It also means to be bereaved of children or made childless or miscarried, which I don't quite know how that plugs in. But the interesting thing about that is what I found is that though I don't know what that means in the context of wisdom and prudence and insight, you'll find in a certain verse somewhere that word used, and all of a sudden you realize, you'll see it fit. So even if it seems out of sorts, I usually write down meanings of the words. I can show you the way I study if you want with some of the books I brought. But here, the other thing I found is that the exact same word can also mean the exact opposite.
Oh, yeah.
So here, Shin Kaf Lamed Vav Tav, which is Sakalon, means folly. Rationalization, Shin Kaf Lamed Vav Nun. Shin Kaf Lamed Vav Lamed, perfection or improvement. So the benefit of using the dictionary, just so you know, is that you'll see the variations of spellings with different suffixes.
Right.
If you have a three-letter word and you take the second letter and duplicate it to make it the third, so if it's Shin Lamed or Shin Kaf Lamed or Shin Kaf Lamed Lamed or Shin Kaf Lamed Vav Lamed, it's all the same word, maybe pushed a little bit of this way or that way, but it's all the same word. And so by studying the dictionary, you can actually learn about Hebrew. So here, Shin Kaf Lamed Lamed, to improve, to perfect, to complete, was finished. Shin Kaf Lamed Shin Kaf Lamed Nun, excuse me. So if you know what good it does to put a nun as a suffix, that's kind of like the one who's engaged in that action is one way to read that. And that means rationalism. So that means you have to sit here and think something over and make it fit. Like how would you rationalize that to be bereaved of children is the same word as place crosswise or improve or wisdom or observe or consider? You might say, I'm going to guess here, that the same frame of mind or attitude where if you lose a child, that it just aches your heart, that it's on your heart, that it's on your mind, that you're trying to make sense out of something, that it's taking all this mental energy. That's the same kind of picture that's happening with Shin Kaf Lamed. It's taking all that mental energy. You're focusing, you're rationalizing, you're trying to make it fit. And if it doesn't fit, all go in the same direction, place it crosswise to make it fit. Somehow you're trying to make sense out of everything.
You're really concentrating.
You can't have any peace unless you do.
Yeah.
So that's
Yeah.
what it takes to study these words.
Yeah.
Contemplating is the word hashakal, and to know is the word spelled here vav yod dalet ayin. So the letter vav is simply used as a conjunction, in which case it would be and yada. So do you know the phrase yada, like yada yada?
Yada, yada.
You know what that
I know,
means?
I know.
Well, to know, or to.
I know.
Yada.
Intimate knowledge.
Intimacy, yes.
Yeah. So
Yeah, Adam, Yadad, Eve.
right. Or if you read about how to do something versus, say you read about basketball, you watch the people play basketball. Yeah. I know. Yada yada. I know about the game. So no, wait a minute. Get that ball in your hands and go out there and fall and scrape your knee on the asphalt and have somebody's elbow in your nose and try to shoot the basket. Now that's knowing the game. That's more of the yada,
The experience.
the experiential knowledge of the.
And that's what I think.
This is what it's referring to. Yada.
Yes.
To know me.
Yeah, that's
So
what
he
Yeshua
says
is
to
saying in John
contemplate
17.
Or contemplate, it also, this is why I think it's the translation says to understand. To contemplate means to probably, contemplation is both a passive and an active or a dynamic word. You can contemplate something like a scientist does under a microscope, but then
That's the word sakal, then, what we were just doing, that exact thing.
or contemplate in the sense that you are observing what is going on in order to achieve knowledge and understanding of the subject or the thing that you are observing. So in this, I just wanted to see if this fit into what you had gone through earlier.
Yeah.
I actually think it's exactly that.
Okay.
So I actually have these verses underlined here because it validates this entire study. To study these words is not just learning a foreign language.
Oh, no.
It's learning the resonance of our being in the deepest reality.
It's learning to Yada.
It's learning. It's both shakal and yada of Yah, Yod He Vav He there of Yah.
Resonating to that vibe.
Yeah, this interesting. The word Yah. That's the short poetic form of Yod He Vav He. But the word Yod He, actually the word, any word that has just Yods, He's, and Vavs in it always is the verb to exist.
Right.
So if it's Yod He Yod He Hey Vav Hey. Yehi Yod Hey Yod be like when he said Yehi Or Vayhi Or. Exist light.
What is it? Ye Asher. No. Ye.
Ehi Asher Ehi. I am that I am.
Yeah, but
That's Aleph Hey Yod Hey.
the past, present, and future. Ye. We sing it
Oh.
in Adon Olam. It's
Who was and is to come.
yeah.
Ayah Asher. I mean, what is it?
Oh, I can't think of it. It doesn't matter anyway.
Well, it's that. It's
Yeah.
using Veyavo is the one. But the thing is, it has to do with existence and aspects of either causing to exist or existing. If you look in the dictionary under Hey Vav Hey, it means to exist or to cease from existing. So if you look at the Yod as the prefix of Yod Hey Vav Hey, it can mean he who causes it to exist or he who has the power, the authority, the place to make it cease to exist.
Wow.
It's both. So quite often in Hebrew, like the word Pesach means to jump over, but it also means to be lame,
To limp, yeah.
to lame or limp. So you're not jumping, you know, you're barely hardly even. So
Even
that,
chesed has a meaning of shame, and you know, there's one place in the Torah where it uses chesed in a bad sense, which is still blows my mind. But
well, there's a. Do you know why? Do you know how to break down chesed to understand its meaning?
That's a good idea. We like that.
yeah,
Yeah.
Wanna do
let's do that.
Yeah. Sure.
Okay,
Break it
so
down.
that's het somic dalet.
Right.
Okay,
Yeah.
so just to point at the letters here.
Lots of surrounding.
This is the het.
Yeah.
You know what that letter means?
It means to surround. It means a fence.
Okay, so see the way it's drawn in Paleo. This is modern. Now, one thing I did with this modern font. Most times you'll see it without this tail, right?
Right.
Oh, right.
I did that because if you go up to Montana, just about everybody is there. If you're entering their compound, they've got this big log over the top with two posts, and it looks like it's very similar to what you'd refer to as a Japanese
Yeah.
Shinto gate.
Yeah, Yellowstone does too.
So that's typical of being out in the northwest of this country for whatever reason. But anyway, it's like the entrance of your estate.
Okay.
This is drawn actually in an interesting way. If you drew a picture of the Big Dipper and the Little Dipper, you've got 4 stars with 3 other stars like the handle to the dipper.
Yeah.
Originally they weren't called dippers. Apparently the pioneers going across the country said, oh, that looks like a ladle, but they were Ursa Major, Ursa
Right,
Minor,
right.
but they weren't even necessarily bear, the Ursa. They were sheepfolds. So the sheepfold is the 4 points, and the 3 dots going out for the handle is the sheep walking out or the sheep coming back. So if you have 2 sheepfolds joined together,
Wow.
you'd have one shaped like this, right? And the
Yeah.
other one shaped like that, and they're both joined together with one vav.
Oh.
So this is kind of like
Oh, that's awesome.
Yeshua saying,
That is
hey,
awesome.
I have other sheep of a fold you
Right.
guys don't know about, but
Yeah,
he is the
John 10.
common link, like the shepherd who lays in the entrance holding together
Okay,
the
we're
2
done. That
sheepfolds.
was enough. Hey, keep on going. Keep on going. That was wonderful. That was wonderful.
Awesome.
So,
that is amazing.
so het is this compound that's secured, on the one hand, secured by the shepherd,
Yeah.
and on the other hand, there's this statement that though the sheep have been kicked out and banished, part of the prophecy, which is in Jeremiah 31 that I wanted to get to, was this: the sheep are going to come back. That is just as much the reality, which is the eschatology. The sheep must come back because it's been decreed.
It's
been
Nam
decreed.
Yahuwah. Anyway,
That explains why, you know, the chatat offering, why hate can mean sin as well as this awesome stuff.
well, het can mean sin is het tet. There's anyway.
But I
There's
mean,
Kata.
the
Oh,
name
kata.
of it.
Duh. Yeah,
Yeah,
Kata
yeah.
sin. Right.
yeah,
Separate.
there's so much. Just
Yeah.
so you know, we could take any one word
Yeah.
and talk
Oh.
about it for an hour.
Oh,
or
yeah.
two.
Oh, easily.
There was
We will do that, too.
a friend up in BC. She took note of this word segula,
Yeah.
precious treasure, and I said, okay, what you might want to do is look at every place, you know, get out a Brown Driver Briggs or Stones or Strong's Concordance and find every place where that word is used and look at those verses, and then look at the derivative spellings, different prefixes, different suffixes, and if you stick yods and vavs between the other 2 letters and find the different mutational options of those letters, and then just study how those letters, Sonic, Gimel, Lamed, you could stick a vav so it's ulive. But anyway, man, she came up with this whole study which just, it really just lit up her heart.
Good.
And it just opened up this whole Hebrew thing to her. So what I'm saying is you can do that with virtually any word. So if you look at Hesed, just as an example. So Het, you've got this fence, which is this conjoined, you might say, 2 houses of Israel, as it were. All right, both
Two
both
sticks.
both sheepfolds held together.
2 sheepfolds.
And then you've got a
Now
somic.
we're going to house. No, I'm kidding.
Nah, he can get away with it.
What's that?
There is
Never
2
mind.
sticks. We're not British Israelites. So, you know, 2 houses, the funny phrase, but don't worry, you're fine. You're fine.
Okay, well, there's a few places where the translation says two houses.
Oh, it does,
But,
I know.
But the question is, what's the real word? Is it bet?
Yeah.
Anyway, we'll have to look at
Yeah,
that.
we'll talk about it.
But anyway, so the letter Samic in the Paleo is drawn, see here it's like a circle, but this looks like a tree or like a trellis
Or
Yeah.
telegraph.
or a telegraph post. No, that's exactly it, because the telegraph post has been engineered by somebody to be the right size of wood for a certain elevation and in those yard arms like the mast of a square rig sailing ship to handle a certain load under torque of holding the wires or pulling the wind. It all has to be engineered by design for stress loads.
That makes sense.
And that's what Samic means. Samic means a support or to lean something
Right.
against. And if you
Right.
lean something against it, you have to, for example, if you were going to build, say, one of those Greek ancient buildings, the Parthenon or something, where you have these marble columns, then you have these beams going across the top, you need to make sure that there's enough posts, pillars, close enough together that handle the span with whatever other load might be superimposed on top of it. When you're doing construction, they have what's called dead load, which is the weight of the building materials. Then you have the live load, which is people or furniture, other things that might be on it at any time, a snow load. All this stuff has to be calculated. Doing all that calculation to come up with something
Yeah.
that'll handle the work laid onto it is what Samic means.
Wow.
And then Dalet, the third word in the word chesed, is this thing which is the door, which is a portal. But Dalet, one reason, or one thing I think of when I see that, if you go onto a freeway and you see a red triangle, it means yield. So you've got two things coming together. So if you're on a freeway and they're merging together, or it's an intersection of some kind, if you see a door, you could say, oh, that's a door. Well, that's the object. What does a door represent? A door is an intersection of another option. Once you see the door, you can either stay in here or you can go out there. Once you see a fork in the road, you can take your pick. The word Dean, Dalet Yod Nun, like Bet Din, House of Judges, but it's the guy who has to choose. Remember when George W. Bush said, I'm the decider? I'm the guy whose job it is to make that decision, which is then implemented into law or national course. So Dalet Nun has to do, if you look at the, I think Dalet Aleph means this, you'll see in the dictionary, an Aramaic form of a word. The one who chooses is the one who says this one or that one. You know, what flavor of ice cream are we going to have? You know, you choose. That's the Dalet. So Dalet is being presented with options and getting to determine for yourself or for everybody else what that option is going to be. So, you could sit here, I'm just going to jump off a tangent subject here. Of all the gifts of being, gifts of being a human that the Creator imparted to Adam, what do you suppose the best gift was?
Life.
You have got the gift of life, but so does a bug, so does a plant.
Love.
Love,
He
dogs
got-
love too. In fact, his name Kalev means all love, all
Are you
heart.
talking in the garden in the original creation before the fall?
Choice.
The best gift? Is that what
Oh,
you're
you
talking
think
about?
choice, really? A car? Okay.
The knowledge of
to
you,
create.
the communication, the being
And
with
the Shama connection.
before God.
But even Satan had that, Hasatan, the adversary. The adversarial
dominion.
one also had intimate
Right.
face-to-face.
Lots better than
Okay,
ours.
all right. Although it preceded Adam because Satan had lived before, right?
Well, I'm not
Okay.
trying to get too much into any particular doctrine concerning that
No,
creature as
I'm
much
not-
as I'm trying to just address the various
Sure.
phrases. So you said choice.
Mm-hmm.
There was a guy a friend I was talking to years ago,
But so did Satan.
he had a choice.
He chose. I was
Yeah,
gonna say
but-
free choice, but
Yeah, but see, that's a big deal. You see,
I think it is really big deal. It's really, really big.
It is.
there was
Really,
a
really
there was a guy that I was
Yeah.
talking to. The guy's from
Yes.
Romania, so I'm thinking that he has a different perspective than I might have been brought up with. Whatever. The point is, he said, you know, if you see a homeless person on the street, if you say, look, you're gonna make a bad choice, so instead of me giving you $5, I'm gonna go buy you a hamburger,
Oh,
and you're gonna eat the hamburger. And he says, this homeless guy on the street might have made 10,000 bad choices in his life, which is why he's a homeless guy on the street. Maybe. Maybe he's a drug addict, maybe he's all strung out, and maybe you're thinking, hey, look, he's not going to make a good choice, so I'm going to buy it for him and override. I'm going to veto any option he has. But this guy was telling me the dignity of a human is to be given the option to choose, and maybe you giving him the $5 and him goes, is operating, functioning as a human. You're
Wow.
playing into his dignity that even Elohim doesn't robotically control us.
Wow.
It's like, God, yeah, that was a significant.
That is an amazing
Thing.
way to look at it.
So if we could take on that same mind of valuing, imagine free choice. He could have made us different. Think of the trouble he would have saved himself if he had made us just do the right stuff. But even still, you know, he said to Jonah, he said, go tell the people of Nineveh that they've got 40 days and that's it. If they change, and Jonah says, look, I know you, you're going to cut them some slack, and I hate these guys.
Yeah.
And Elohim says, do you think I don't care about I know they're wicked. That's why you're supposed to go warn them. Do you think I don't care about them and the animals? Really? You think I'm that heartless? That's right. But he wants us to choose. He wants us to volitionally exercise, throwing the stick this way or that way, the throttle as it were. There's
Yeah.
something about that which is at just the pinnacle of our human experience.
Be hot or cold. Doesn't want us to be
Oh,
lukewarm
yeah.
and just kind of hang out on the invisible fence.
Okay.
So you could look at Hetzamigdalet as saying, you know, we could read it backwards and say choosing the structure of, or choosing to be in the fence according to how he's organized everything. It's like, that's what studying this language is all about. If you look at the word just spelled Hetzamik, in the dictionary, it'll say it means lettuce, L-E-E-T-T-U-C-E, lettuce, like a head of lettuce. And it also means pity and sparing. Now, can anybody suggest why in the world would you get a head of lettuce and then the words pity and sparing? Here, Hetzamik hay, lettuce. And he says here, it's of uncertain origin. So this being an etymological dictionary, just so you know, he gives you where other languages have a similar word. So here's Aramaic, Hetzamik Aleph, and he tells you Akkadian and Ugaritic and on and on and on. Hetzamik hay would be lettuce, but it also means to seek refuge. Hetzamik Dalet can mean shame or rebuke. Hetzamik Dalet is also kindness, goodness, mercy, affection, lovely appearance. Also, to be reproached or ashamed, insulted. It's also to be kind or pious or pretended. He showed himself kind, dealt kindly, pretended to be pious. Now here, if you again, just so you have to use the dictionary, if you take Hetzamik and change the suffix instead of just being the letter hey to be a vav yod, it means protected. Hetzamik vav kaf, it would be chesuk, it would be saved. Hetzamik vav nun, so vav nun is the suffix, means immunization, to be strengthened or immunized. So are you familiar with the phrase lederhosen?
Sure.
Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah.
What does that mean?
German.
Leather
pants.
Leather pants.
Short
Leather.
pants.
But here the word Hetzamik vav nun means immunized or strengthened. Hosen is Hebrew. How do you get pants?
Well, Hosen is pants in German.
Why? How does it relate to this word?
I don't know.
Yeah.
Protects your legs.
Oh.
Not really, because they're short.
Although
Very
they make a
protecting.
bib out of them.
Protects your rear end is what it does.
Chazin, Het Samek Yod Nun, is strong or powerful, immunity or strength. What I'm saying is that the Romans, from what I understand, kind of a weird thing. You know, you hear women shouldn't wear that which pertains to a man nor man to a woman, but in the days of the Romans, the men wore skirts and the women wore pants. Somehow it got changed. So what are we supposed to be doing, really? You know, if you go back to which culture. But the point is, when the Romans were going through the Scotland, trying to go after the Scots, it was the thistles that just ripped them apart, and they couldn't keep pursuing them, which is one reason why the Scottish thistle is their national emblem. And so it's like having leather pants. Well, we've got blackberries up in Oregon. Man, you hate those things. They just rip you to shreds, even when you're. But if you have, leather or special armored gloves, you can deal with them. But man, those things are just vicious.
Yeah.
The idea, though, is to be protected, spared, saved, which is the word also for pity or to find mercy. So what's that got to do with a head of lettuce?
You shred it to make salad.
So you're thinking,
that's a good one.
No idea.
who might, other than a vegan, who might find protection in a head of lettuce?
A bug.
Yeah.
A bug! You gotta think outside the box.
I thought of it.
A bug, imagine layer upon layer of wrapped up in all these, every leaf is like this shield around you.
It ceases to be kosher then.
Depends on the bug.
Well, one
like,
bug,
like
maybe.
grasshoppers.
Well, you can wash it a certain way,
Well,
according to the rabbis.
Yeah, see? They like their
Well,
grasshoppers.
the point is, layers of protection, like armor, like leader hose, like leather, like women wear hose, right? The same word. It comes from the Hebrew. It's the same exact word. And it's a type of protection. So, chesed, so here's another interesting thing. If you look at Samek Dalet, and this is just breaking, Het Samek and then Samek Dalet, is actually where you get the word,
Sewed.
But it's also where you get the word sodomy, or the town, the city called Sodom, is Samek Dalet. It's like,
I've never thought of that. It's Haya sewed and that.
Yeah.
that's right.
Gone that direction, but
So if you look at the word Samek Dalet here, it means,
Maybe that was the foundation of them.
so Samek Dalet is stocks for torturing. It's Samek Dalet if you add the mem, or Samek Dalet Vav Mem, Sodom, a city of whose inhabitants were wicked sinners. So that's Samek Dalet. If you make it Samek Vav Dalet, you get whitewashed, council, secret council, council or assembly or secret to consult in whispers, to plaster or whitewash. Samek Vav Dalet Yod, so it'd be Sodi, is secret or privacy. So how do you make sense out of that? And Yesod is the foundation, right?
Yeah.
Now,
Yeah.
where's the foundation?
Yeshua.
on the bottom.
Well, it's underground.
Yeah.
So it's
the
kinda hidden.
First
Yeah, it's
layer, right?
What happens when you whitewash something?
You cover it.
You cover it over.
up.
So you almost disguise it.
You do.
Right? It's not seen for what it really is.
Right.
So if Samek Dalet is where you get this word for sodomy, and he says, if you conduct that behavior, you will abominate yourself, because you're kind of choosing to go contrary to the engineered design. The foundation is a hidden engineered design. That's if the foundation, if you have concrete, if it's broken. Some buildings back in the days of the pioneers, they built logs laying on top of rocks. There was a building in Oregon City I worked on that was like that. It stood for almost 100 years, but we lifted it up and poured concrete with rebar and everything, and you can't see it anymore because it's buried in the ground. But the yesod is the foundation of the kingdom. It's this. So Brad Scott, in his study of the Hebrew words, says the word sod means family secrets. They only consult in whispers.
I know.
And if the Greeks or the Goyim, the Gentiles, or somebody else is listening, then you might want to talk in secret code. And if somebody else says, hey, why are you doing that? Oh, it's just some stupid cultural thing we inherited. I don't know why we're doing this. It's like, you don't want to tell them this is where your
Yiddish.
power is.
It's
It's
Yiddish.
Yiddish.
That's why they developed it.
That's
Yeah.
right.
So what I'm saying is to think that we ought to just broadcast everything to the world isn't really smart, and it's not necessarily the way it is. For example, in Portland a few years ago, there was, in fact, even still presently, there are people that put on Passover Seders open to the general public. Anybody can go to it. Is that appropriate?
No.
They call it outreach.
He said men were supposed to be circumcised.
Don't show them where you get your water.
The thing is, like my wife said, Pesach isn't a spectator sport. Now, Sukkot might be more open to the general public, but not Pesach.
No.
It's casting fire before swine.
Pesach is kind of like, listen, you got to sign up and be one of us and stay here all night and have this, and it's almost like this sod level family secrets of this yada, intimate relationship with the one who claims to be our Elohim, and Israel is exclusively his people. There's a word for the pupil, the pupil of your eye, the twinkle of the eye. And he said, there's another verse that gets into another part of a different study of different verses, but he says, Israel is the people that express his identity. Which is to say, you know, the religious leaders back 2,000 years ago were saying, hey, we're sons of Abraham. And Yahusha said, if you were sons of Abraham, you'd be doing what Abraham did. And if you listen to Moshe, you'd be able to hear me. But because you don't listen, you can't hear me. And you can have the genetic DNA, but that means nothing. It might mean something to some degree, somehow that's another part of the story. But it means nothing when it comes to being, who is Israel? What does that word even mean? You could say, well, Yod, Shin, Resh, Aleph, Lamed. Aleph, Lamed is where you get the word El for Elohim. And Yod, Shin, Resh is the variation of the word Aleph, Shin, Resh, Asher, like in Ehyeh, Asher, Ehyeh, I am that I am. Well, Asher is translated that, who, or which. But it's also to walk straight, to authenticate, to validate, to be perfectly exact right there where you're supposed to be. So Aleph Shin Resh could be read as I will validate or authenticate, and Yod Shin Resh could be read as third person. He will, and then this word sar can also be read as the word for prince or singer or poet, and it's also a bracelet chain. So you can sit there and think, a prince, a singer, a poet, and a bracelet chain. How do you synthesize all those together? What's the common thread? Where my mind goes is, picture the folk singers of the 60s. They took difficult matters like the war in Vietnam and the interracial tensions in this country and the countercultural revolution of what should be lawful and who's the big stupid jerks running the place. And they took these heavy matters and they made little ditty songs out of them. Beautiful little things that, you know, it's like, boy, that's what a prince is supposed to do. The prince is supposed to, the leader of state is supposed to take these weighty matters of the kingdom, interfacing with the world, and turn them into a little, so what do you mean by chamotzi lehem min haaretz? You bring forth the bread from the earth. From the hidden under the ground, you bring forth our sustenance for the day, whatever we need. You, our Elohim, are the one who promises our provision when it's unseen source. And you have layer after layer, word after word, like a bug can hide in a piece of lettuce. I can hide in these words with absolute confidence. of your mercy, your protection, your benevolent kindness, because you said again and again and again, whoever will listen to me, I will hear their prayer. And if you don't listen to my words, I cannot hear you. Not that he chooses, but it's balanced scales of justice. If we don't listen to him, he cannot listen to us. And yet it's preached from the pulpit. God loves you and hears every prayer you speak. That's not what Yahuwah says. He can't, according to his own words.
According to his own words.
So you can preach all these wonderful things about God. It doesn't match necessarily these words.
Exactly.
How many prayers are wasted?
Oh my
lot.
gosh.
Oh my.
Whew. That's heavy load.
For us to choose to contemplate, fit these things together. Fit them together as spelling words. Fit them together as understanding who is this one who chose the 4 letters to describe himself. The 10th letter, the 5th, the 6th, and then the 5th again. Why? Why those 4? Why in that order? There's something to contemplate. And then when he said Ehi, Aleph, Hey, Yod, Hey, that's a little different. What did he mean by that? We could elaborate as per my thinking, but I mean, you guys can ponder that. That's, if you ponder it, look at this. You can think you're wise, forget it. The strong, forget it. The rich, forget it. There's another verse where Elohim says, heaven is my throne and earth is my footstool. You're going to make a temple? You're going to what? But it is this too that I look to. A man who listens to my voice and regards what I say. Regardless of anything that's ever happened in any of our lives, of any failure, of any disregard, of any shame, of any, you're not smart enough, strong enough, athletic enough, whatever, we can instantly skyrocket to the top of a successful life in his eyes, in his estimation, simply by choosing to say, I'm going to study these words because they're him. And instantly my life is a success and everything else is in disregard. And it's unto eternity.
What about Israel? You mentioned Israel earlier, and you go through the Kings, 1st, 2nd Kings, and you go through the Chronicles, Israel, 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 and then Judah, Judah, Judah. So it's Israel, Judah throughout. When will Judah become a part of Israel or whatever?
Ezekiel 37. The
Ezekiel.
2 sticks being joined together.
Oh, okay, I knew that.
Okay, so I was going to talk about Jeremiah 31, but let's jump for a moment to Ezekiel 36,
How late do you want to
23.
go, guys?
Didn't quite
How
get
late?
there, did we?
It's 10:30-ish, 10:35. How late can we go?
Well, we have to come back tomorrow.
We have to come back.
Do you want to, if you only want to go for 5 minutes or 30,
What do you
30
think, 5,
minutes?
10
or-
minutes?
Yeah.
By
we'll
10:45?
make it to
Yeah.
Yeah, we'll get
Yeah.
tired and we don't have
Yeah.
enough in the morning. So
Let's
let's
go.
10:45, so do 10 minutes, okay?
Okay, Ezekiel 36, 23.
Let's do that.
This is touching eschatology again.
So it's Ezekiel
36,
We
23.
never talk about that.
36, 20.
So
We'll never talk about that.
No, no.
Maybe
one
we
was
do
prepared for
correctly.
So I'm going to back up. We're going to look at 3623 in particular, but here I'm going to back up and give you a really fast overview. If I go all the way back to chapter, say, 34 here,
that. Are you going to separate the sheep from the sheep and the sheep from the goats? Yep.
yeah, real fast.
So you
Okay,
went to
go for it.
34?
I'm going to go back to
34.
Ezekiel 34,
Okay.
and I'm just going to jump real quick here. Verse 2, woe to the shepherds of Israel who have tended themselves.
Yeah.
Is it not the flock that the shepherds should tend? So somebody's ripping off,
Yep.
somebody's not doing the job they've been entrusted with,
Yep.
and they're ripping off the sheep,
Yep.
right?
Yep.
The ill you did not cure, the broken you did not bind, so forth and so on. If you run down verse 10, thus says the Lord Hashem / Elohim, that's this translation, I am against the shepherds, and I will seek out my flock from their hand, and I will cause them to cease herding sheep, and the shepherds will no longer tend themselves. Thus I will rescue my sheep from their mouths, they will no longer be food for them. For thus says the Lord Hashem Elohim, behold, I am here, and I will seek out my sheep, and I will tend them. As a shepherd tends his flock in the days among his separated sheep, so I will tend my sheep. Has this happened yet? Have we ceased being lied to by our shepherds and getting the truth directly from
I mean, it's more
That's
like
what's going on in the
find
first
me a
century
$65
when
million
Yeshua came.
jet.
Well, okay,
Yeah.
then, so my sense of eschatology says the world can't end yet until this happens. Okay? This has to happen before he can end the world.
Yeah.
Say that again, what has to happen?
That I will remove them from the peoples and gather them from the lands and bring them to their soil, and
Ooh.
I will tend them upon the mountains of Israel, in the streams and in all the land's habitations. Verse 13. I will shepherd them upon a good pasture, and their fold will be upon the heights of Israel's mountains. I will care for my sheep, and I will lay them down. For the lost I will search, the banished I will retrieve. The broken I will bind, the ill I will strengthen, but the fat one, the strong one I will destroy. I will tend them with justice. That's that balance scales. I will give them what they've been given out. So you could say, well, that was Yeshua when he was here. He didn't really do that. If he did it, it
a
was only
little
for,
bit of it.
maybe
a
for,
little bit.
according to Michael Rood, maybe 70 weeks at the most, but not even. But my
Right,
point
right,
is this.
right.
I will save my sheep. They will no longer be for spoils. We've had 2,000 years of spoiled sheep since Yeshua is here. Anyway,
Yes.
go back. Then they will know that I am Yodevavhe, when I break the rods of their yoke, rescue them from the hands of those who enslave them. They will no longer be spoils for the nation. They will dwell securely. None will make them afraid. That's not even happening in Israel today. And Israel wasn't a nation for nearly 2,000 years, so this hasn't happened yet. Now you are my sheep, the sheep of my pasture. You are man, I am your Elohim. The word of Yod-Heh-Vav-Heh. Okay, because you have, here's the balance scales. Because you have pursued blood, blood will pursue you. Surely, though you have hated bloodshed, bloodshed will pursue you. I have acted according to your angle and according to your vengefulness. Balance scales, this is down in chapter 35, verse 11. Okay, for chapter 36. Therefore, verse 5, thus says Yod-Heh-Vav-Heh, I swear that I have spoken in the fire of my vengefulness against the remaining nations and against all of Edom, who have arrogated my land to themselves, land of Israel, because you, now he's speaking to his people, I'm trying to go fast here, because you bore the shame of the nations, that the nations surrounding you will bear their shame. He's going to turn the tables, turn the teeter-totter the other direction. But you, O mountains of Israel, will give forth your branch and bear your fruit for my people, for they are soon to come. This was 500 BC. It hasn't happened yet. I will make it better than it was at your beginning. That's verse 11. Then you will know that I am Yod-Heh-Vav-Heh. I will cause man to walk upon you. He's talking about the mountains. My people Israel, and they will inherit you. Then you will be theirs for possession. They will no longer be bereaved of them. Hasn't happened yet. Run down. Verse 18 of chapter 36 Ezekiel. Because of the blood that they had shed in the land, because they had defiled it with their idols, I scattered them amongst the nations. They were dispersed among the lands. According to their way and according to their acts did I judge them. There's that word mishpat. According to their way is exactly what happened. They came among the nations where they came, and they... Remember, Israel's job is to declare who Yod-Heh-Vav-Heh is? There they desecrated my holy name when it was said of them, oh, these are the people of Yod-Heh-Vav-Heh, but they departed his land. So in other words, they ruined his land. He scattered them when they came into the land. And now America is on the other side of the world, right? So they came even to the North American continent. And instead of making his name pure and sacred, they defiled it.
Okay.
Now, then you go down to the next verse, verse 22. Therefore, say to the house of Israel, say, thus says Yod-Heh-Vav-Heh, it is not for your sake that I act, O house of Israel, but for my Shem Kadosh, my holy name, that you have desecrated among the nations where you came. Okay, here's the status quo. He has not yet restored his favor and his people to the land as he said it had to happen before the end of the world, because he said it had to happen. And he says, I took you and scattered you guys to the far reaches of the world, and you desecrated. Now, just so you know, that word desecrate is spelled het lamed lamed. the
Wow,
eighth
yeah,
letter,
it's a big
and then
one.
2 L's. That's like the word hell.
Hell.
Oh, yeah, it is.
We made his Shem, his reputation, hell. And if you look at that word, this is a real kick in the head. If you look at that word in this dictionary, that word means profane, common, vile, desecrated, punched holes in, and drained out empty. It's the word for flute, which has holes in it and it's empty. It's also a priest who was denied the priesthood and a priest of questionable genealogical descent, and it means to start something new.
What?
Do you recognize that
It's
story?
like having the
Something new,
two
yes.
sheepfolds and the openings on each side, but you've got llamas on each side just beating them up on each side as they're coming out.
Well, and challah, it's pierced.
Yeah.
That's it's,
Challah
it's that
bread,
same.
right? Same root word,
Yeah.
chetlamet.
Yeah.
Okay, but listen to this. Do you know of any? Here's the thing. We have to decide when this is and what's going on to find out where we are today. He said, I took your ancestors, and because they profaned and violated the land, I threw them across the face of the earth. And there they, instead of telling my true character and nature and the truth of the story of what this is all about, they told something about me that was profane, common, vile, desecrated, punched holes in, emptied, hollowed out, like a priest who was denied the priesthood, like a priest of questionable genealogical descent, so he was invalid, like a whole new thing that had no connection to the old. And it was somebody that was wounded unto death.
Sounds familiar.
Kind of sounds like the story of Jesus Christ. He fits the description of all those things.
Absolutely.
It's like, wait a minute, did the people of Israel get scattered across the face of the earth, and thinking they were doing the right thing, they were telling the story of Jesus Christ? Now, what does he say here? Verse 23, I will sanctify my great name. That, what he says in Hebrew is, I will make Gadol, or I will make Kadosh, my Shem HaGadol. Gadol, like Gedolim, that's a great tower. His Shem, that's his stuff. He says, I'm going to magnify my stuff to be Kadosh. Now the word Kadosh is translated holy or to be sanctified. But remember what word the Melachim are saying as they go around the throne and that vision up in heaven?
Kadosh, kadosh, kadosh.
Kadosh, Kadosh, Kadosh. In other words, the reality of who he is that's not been translated, interpreted, mucked around, turned into a political, economic agenda, but the purity is Kadosh. If this is the original word that he described, that he invented, that he implemented before there was ever a human, before there was ever somebody else's agenda of politics and religion, then the study of this is Kadosh. And it's as Kadosh as we'll ever see. And if this is his name, then he says, I will make Kadosh my great reputation. In other words, you remember those stories of him being our champion and him wiping out our enemies and him changing the weather and providing manna and opening the sea and raising the dead? But you guys desecrated my name amongst the nations, that you have desecrated among them. Then the nations will know that I am Yod-Heh-Vav-Heh, Nam, Yahweh, when, here's the when, I become sanctified. That means I am made Kadosh through you before their eyes. That word eyes there is ayin, which also means to weigh, to measure, to evaluate, to put in scales of balance and make able to be shakil, scrutinized and refined and made proper. What I read here is him saying, when you guys properly tell who I am in the understanding of all those people in the nations amongst whom you've been scattered, then I will step in and play into, I will walk in the shoes when you give me the right shoes to wear, as it were. In other words, we've been sitting there waiting for that dang rapture bust, which is too long in coming, and he says, I'm waiting for you guys to tell the story of who I really am, what I really said, and make it comprehensible and understandable in the eyes of the nations where I've scattered you. And when you do that, truly, then I will step in and play into that reputation as your majestic Elohim who blows away his enemies and lavishly pours out chesed, my favor, pitifully sparing you. Where's that tribulation? I don't see it.
I don't either.
But the Christians see it. Why? Because they've got the halal story. And this isn't for the halal story. Then, verse 24.